We have completed the book of Esther for our festival of Purim. I just want to make another closeout, and I want to go to Esther chapter 3, and I want to read this. And it reads, "After these things did King Artaxerxes promote Haman, the son of the Amminadab, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed in reverence Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence." Now we're going to drop down to verse 6. And it reads, "And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdoms of Artaxerxes, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Artaxerxes, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman." So Purim means to cast a lot. The yom of pur represents all. So he cast lots against the whole house of Israel. And Haman is a grandson of the Amalekite king. So he comes from the nation of the Amalekites, who are all Edomites. It says, "From day to day and from month to month to the 12th month, that is the month of Adar. And Haman said unto the king Artaxerxes, There is a certain people scattered abroad, and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them." Verse 9. I'm going somewhere with this. "If it please the king, let it be written, that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the businesses, to bring it into the king's treasuries." The king's treasuries. Notice, all kings had treasuries. And one kingdom would conquer another kingdom, and the first thing they would take is the spoils of the treasuries. Verse 10. "And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Amminadab, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, The silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded, unto the king's lieutenants, and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. And the name of the king Artaxerxes was written, and sealed with the king's ring. So when did they meet? In the first month of the year, on the 13th day. Verse 13. "And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Israelites, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take the spoil of them for prey." Now, this law that was passed, and I'm going to leave this up to you. We could consider it one day, but it could have rarely been one day of every month. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine seeing your loved one leave out the house, or a certain family being picked on a specific day to die? Imagine the stress that would be on you. Verse 14. "The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan, the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Pretty interesting. Now, this same thing happened many times to us in different kingdoms. Okay, they always wanted to kill not one, but all of us. We're going to go into the book of Maccabees, and let me show you a mirror image of this. We're going to go into Maccabees, 2 Maccabees chapter 6. We're going to start with 6. And this is under the people, the Greeks. These are the kinfolks of Haman the Agagite. Verse 6, it reads, "Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. All in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraints to eat of the sacrifices." See, this one says every month they were brought by constraints. "And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus." They had to go. It was mandatory. Carrying ivy. They had to make their allegiance towards the king of the Greeks. Verse 8. "Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighboring cities of the heathen," just like we read in the book of Esther, how a law was sent to every province. "Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen, by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions, and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery." So now you have the same thing going on in the Greek captivity. And one thing about the Greeks and the Romans, they learn from their mistakes, and they always make a change or amend a law. Now let's look at what Yahushua says during the time of the Romans. Because the Romans came after the Greeks. And we saw it in the book of Esther. We saw it in the book of Maccabees. And now listen to what Yahushua says. This is John chapter 10 and verse 10. And this is what he says: "The thief cometh not, but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly." He knows who the thieves are. He knows what they come to do. They come to kill, to steal, and destroy. Just like Haman, just like Alexander the Greek, just like the Romans, just like the people that rule the European countries today. They do the same thing. So we're going to go into a couple other things that I want to pull up throughout history, and hopefully it rings a bell for you how this is passed along down the line, even up till today's times. So this is the first book of the Maccabees, and it talks about, in it, chapter 1, "And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians, and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth." Sounds familiar? Let's just jump to the point. Verse 9. I'll read verse 7. "So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth." There it is. That's in your Bible. The destroyer of worlds We're going to review this book. This is called The Unknown Catacombs, a unique discovery of early Christian art by Antonio Faria. We're going to go through this mainly because I want you to see the bigotry and the racism towards anyone that's not Caucasian when it comes to these prints or these iconic paintings on the walls inside the catacombs. Now, there's several catacombs, but this particular catacomb stands out more than all the rest. Apparently, this is the one that the saints are actually free to express themselves on the wall, versus the other catacombs, which was highly authorized only by the Roman Pope, Caesar, or King, to be able to put on the walls whatever they wanted to put on. They made people put what they wanted on the walls. So it was more restricted and overseen by a ecclesiastical preacher or minister. So let's see the difference. Let's go through this book. I myself have been in these catacombs and other catacombs in Rome. Let's read number 9. It says, of course, 50 known catacombs in Rome, most are denied to our curiosity in order to protect their wall paintings, which even human breath could damage irreparably. The 5 open to the public: Agnes, Callistus, Domitilla, Priscilla, and Ad Catacumbus. Saint Sebastian are visited by more than 1 million people each year. I'm going to drop down. It says here, still implicit in such a visit are the risks that were run from the 1st to the 4th centuries AD by the sect called the Christians, against whom the Roman Senate had issued severe edicts and for whom more than one emperor had demonstrated his aversion. Now we know in the book of Acts it talks about the Jews being called Christians in Antioch. Basic principle of using it as a code word, because if we used our name, the Jews or Hebrews, they would possibly even kill us. Or even mentioning our feast days, they would kill us. So going through this book, I'm going to show you the racist journalism here. And notice too in this that most of the bones are no longer here. There was an excavation that took place when they went through these catacombs and they removed a lot of the bones. Look at these people that are on the wall. These people are of color. They're not what you would call Caucasian people. Okay, they call them Paleo-Christians. This here is the Good Shepherd. Who's the Good Shepherd? We know the Good Shepherd is Hamashiach, Yahushua, or some people call him Jesus Christ. This is a photo of Daniel. I mean, he's just the same color as my finger. Look at my finger, look at him. Now the interesting thing, they call these people who put these images up on the wall early Christians. In other words, early slaves of the Roman Empire, right? We're just taking a walk through time here. Now, what I mentioned about the racism of the journalism of this book, we'll notice something in a minute. This right here is the fall of Adam and Eve. I'll let you see it. The fall of Adam and Eve. What color are they? Look at my finger. Look how dark I'm bronze. They're bronze. And it's not because it's an old painting that it's faded. Because if you saw the original painting, they'd be dark all over. Just look at the wall. Look how pale the wall is. It's more like a beige color. So if the wall is beige, why are they dark? This also is Daniel in the lion's den. Look at that. And the reason why they won't say Jews is because they're trying to keep the two separated by saying that they're the Paleo-Christians. They don't want you to figure it out that the earlier Paleo-Christians were the Jews. Going back to the front of the book, this is page 8. Look at this catacomb. Look how they're shaped. Look at how they're carved out. Look at the graves that are on the side. Look at the stairs, how it goes down. Now, for people who are used to digging things like this, don't you think they would have done it a long time ago? These catacombs. So let me show you something, because the only people who occupied these catacombs were the slaves of Rome. Let me show you something else. Now these two were in the catacombs. These are the sections where the bodies were laid in the basilicas. Now I'm going to close this. I want to show you this. This is called Kings of the Bible. Look at the front cover of this book. This is by National Geographic. Now we know that this is false. This is what they were doing in the other catacombs. They had an ecclesiastical preacher standing by making sure they did this type of stuff, iconoclasm, instead of painting the original images. Now I'm going to turn to page 60. And as you can see here, it says King Hezekiah. Now, doesn't this look like the catacombs? Now, this is the tunnel that ran from the spring of Gihon to the pool of Siloam, providing Jerusalem with access to water in times of the siege. Look at those stairs. Doesn't it favor the catacomb? Now, don't you think the people who could do something like this would do it again somewhere else? They dug a burrow or a tunnel straight to the water down inside this mountain. Looks like the catacombs, doesn't it? So this is how you know, this is how you put two and two together. Now let's look at this. This is the Pharaoh of Joseph. Tell me what's wrong with this picture after we just saw what was in the unknown catacombs. Tell me what's on the wall here and tell me who's in front. Something is off here. Look at those on the wall in Egypt. And look who they have here as an Egyptian. It even shows a real Egyptian right there. Look at how white the skirt is. Then look at the arms of this Egyptian, dark. Who were the slaves in Egypt? Israelites, look at that. Dark skin. And they want you to believe this crap. Which is totally false. Here's more. This is on page 20. It's showing who the Egyptians are. So now we see who the Egyptians are and their complexion. And we saw who the slaves were on the other book, on the other. Like those are slaves right there. Now let's look at the Israelites here. Those are not the Israelites. This is whitewashed. You kidding me? This is crazy. This is crazy. And they got the Egyptians black here. It's just totally crazy. But the slaves are white? Really? Total nonsense. Here's more nonsense. Okay, you got a brother from Ethiopia. Now let's find Queen of Sheba. Queen of Sheba. Let's read the insert. It says, "The illustration of the visit of the Queen of Sheba to King Solomon was painted by Sir Edward John Patner in the early 1900s. 1836-19 says been whitewashed. Let's see what Queen of Sheba looks like. Oh no, I don't think so. She's running a so-called Solomon. We read the Song of Solomon. What does he say? Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. He tells you that I'm black and comely, black and handsome. That don't look like Solomon to me. It looks like an Arab. And that don't look like Queen of Sheba to me. Exposed. That's ridiculous. Just a bunch of hypocrisy. Okay, so we just saw the Ethiopians and they painted them white. We just saw the Egyptians, they painted them white. Now this is the Pharaoh during the time of Exodus. Kings in the time of Genesis and Exodus. Look at that. This is the Egyptian king. Does he look Caucasian to you? Let's look at some more of Israel's enemies and let's see the color of them. Who is this? This is the fall of Babylon in 540 BC. Cyrus fought his way to the city of Babylon, which fell shortly thereafter. A tablet known as the verse account of Nabonidus suggests that the citizens of Babylon, fed up with their absentee monarch, simply opened the gates of Sa. So basically, what is it showing you? These are the people of Persia. And these could very well be Israelites too that were in the armies. But look at the complexion of them, of the Babylonians and the Persians as well. So we saw the Ethiopians, the original color of the Ethiopians. We saw the original color of the Egyptians. Now we're seeing the color of the Babylonians. They were all bronze. Okay? So why are they painting these people in different parts of this book Caucasians when they weren't Caucasians? Same thing they done with the Israelites. Let's look at another form of tainting. Okay, this book is called Ancient Egypt by David P. Silverman, the general editor. What do we have here? This is 40 Egyptian soldiers. This is during Moses' order. Look at that. 40 Egyptian soldiers equipped with spears and rawhide shields. From the tomb of the nomarch Meshiti at Ashut, the 11th dynasty, 2000 BCE. This is during the time of Moses. So if they look like that, what did Moses look like? More enemies of Israel. Look at this. These are the slaves of Egypt. They don't look Caucasian to me. What does it say? After threshing, the grain was winnowed, lifted up in wooden scoops, and tossed into the air so that the shaft blew away in the wind, while the wheat fell to the ground. This winnowing scene comes from the tomb of Nut in western Thebes. New Kingdom, 18th dynasty, 1400 BCE. Interesting, isn't it? How about this? Alright. These are tomb owners hunting birds in the Nile marshes. This is the Egyptian tombs. Look at that. But on such paintings and frescoes, they have the Egyptians as Caucasian. Look at this. Or Arab. They're not Arab here. That happened during the time of Salahuddin, which happened way down the line during 600 AD. This is BCE. This is in western Thebes as well. Look at the hairstyle. Braids. Look at the women. Braids. So these lies continue to follow these people who are the Europeans. There's more. Those are Egyptians and slaves of the Egyptians, which are the Israelites. Bow down to the Egyptians. Look at this. They made people out of clay. What complexion are they? Don't look Arab. See that? Those are Israelites. Grinding wheat. That's in the 12th century. Look at that. Look at the sister's hair. Now they'll say that this didn't happen. No, this wasn't Egyptians. Okay. Look at that. The sister with braids. Possibly be an Israelite woman. Look at that. Working, she working. That was the style. Look at that. Look at the braids. Now, this is a book that a brother named Jonathan gave me. I still remember you, Jonathan, even though I haven't talked to you in a long time. Thank you for this book. It's called Empires of the Nile, Wellesby and Philipson. Empires of the Nile. Highly decorated book. Looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Look what's on the front. I believe this is page 351. Now, we saw the women with the braids. Look at this. Let's read the below insert. Adult female with plaited hair buried at Kabalti, 4th, 6th century AD. Alright. So it looks just like those pictures that we saw of the Egyptian women and the Hebrew women who were on the pictures. You know? Not Caucasian. Now let's look at this picture. This is a wall painting in the monastery of the Holy Trinity of Old Dongola, depicting Christ healing a blind man at the pool of Siloam, 12th century AD. Now, if we saw all the enemies of Israel being brown complexion, let's see what the Israelites look like. So this is a man at the pool of Siloam during the 12th century AD. And that's supposed to be Christ. It looks like he was whitewashed. You can't even see his face. Neck has been whitewashed. Arm has been whitewashed. You can see the paint of the dark right there. See that? He scrubbed it off. And look at the brother, the fellow Israelite that he sent to the pool. Let's go to that. Let's go to that verse. We're in the King James Bible, and we're going to go to John chapter 9, verse 1. We're going to prove that that actually happened. And as Yahushua passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Yahushua answered, Neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of the Most High should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me, while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam. That's the blind man. He was an Israelite. Christ healed all the Israelites when he came. He blessed all the Israelites. He spoke to the Israelites. He didn't speak to anyone who was not an Israelite. So why was he whitewashed? They didn't want to show that he too was also a man of color. Just like this man who was blind. And said unto him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. He went his way therefore and washed, and came seeing the neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him, that he was blind, said, Is not this he that sat and begged? Some said, This is he. Others said, He is like him. But he said, I am he. Therefore said they unto him, How are thine eyes open? He answered and said, A man that is called Yahushua made clay and anointed mine eyes, and said unto me, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed and received sight. Then said they unto him, Where is he? He said, I know not. They brought to the Pharisees him that aforetime was blind. Now, if he wasn't of an Israelite statute, of an Israelite nation, why would they bring him to the Pharisees? Because he was an Israelite. This man is an Israelite. And again the Pharisees also asked him how he received his sight. He said unto them, He put clay upon mine eyes, and I washed, and do see. Therefore said some of the Pharisees, This man is not of the Most High, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. So he's an Israelite. Well, there said, How can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? And there was a division among them. They say unto the blind man again, What sayest thou of him, that he hath opened thine eyes? He said, He is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him, that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. So why are they calling the parents? Because this man was an Israelite. His parents were Israelites. They knew the law. So here's another book that's called Heavenly Bodies, Cult Treasures, and Spectacular Saints from the Catacombs. Look at this. By Paul Coudenars. We just looked at another book called The Catacombs, and when we went through it, I told you, where are the bones at? Where are the bones of those saints? Okay? So we're going to go through this book, and we're going to start on page 57. And look what it says. The Church Triumphant, constructing the Catacomb Saints. The relics taken from the Roman catacombs were transported north for over more than 2 centuries. What's north? Now we have read in Jeremiah 23:8 said that we would be taken from the north and brought back to the land. But it says here that these relics from the Roman catacombs were transported north. So it's just not our bodies when they are lively are being transported, but also our bones are being transported. It goes all the way to the bones, family. We can't even be buried in our land. Even the bones are still being tampered with for over more than 2 centuries. Doubts about their providence were never erased, providing ammunition for new generations or skeptics, especially those on the Protestant side. The 18th century and Anglican Bishop Gilbert Burnet, for instance, commented disdainfully that the bones of the Roman slaves, or at least those of meaner sort, are now set in silver and gold. Now you can see right here when it says the bones of the Roman slaves, those are the ancient Christians who were actually Jews. who were forced to convert. These aren't the Roman Christians. These are the Israelites who are calling themselves Christians just so they wouldn't be killed by saying that they were Jews. Okay? It says, or at least those of the meaner sort are now set in silver and gold. What does that mean, set in silver and gold? We're going to look at it. With a great deal of other costly garniture, and entertain the superstition of those who are willing to, what's that? To be deceived. See that? Now they could have took the kings of Rome, the Caesars of Rome, and did the same thing and put them in silver and gold. But they took the Roman slaves. Who were the saints? I'm going to drop down. Before leaving Rome, because it says precious cargo. See that? We were also cargo in the transatlantic slave trade. But our forefathers, who were in the 4th, 3rd, 2nd century, were also precious cargo. This is transporting the skeletons. Boy, the Most High did a 1-2 on us for breaking his laws, statutes, and commandments. Before leaving Rome, authenticated bones were prepared for their journey by being wrapped in towels and placed in a wooden box called capsula. This package was then bound rightly with red silk lacing, covered in a waterproof cloth, and given 2 or 3 official seals. Look at that, our bones being transported. Look at the jury. Aren't we known as being jury? We made all these little articrafts and little trinkets, and we used pearls and diamonds. We had a lot of gold. When the Romans ambushed us, what do you think they took? Like we read in the book of Esther, they took everything that we had. It was decreed to hang us on gallows and take everything we had. Look at the cavity of the nose. Precious jewels. Looks like braids, huh? So they decorated these bones of ours in precious jewels. So all of these were transported from Italy to various countries north, like France, Germany, England, Russia, all right, Poland, Switzerland. Look at how they decorated it. This is on page 92. It reads, this is the top paragraph, the church triumph. When Saint Pancratius was officially received in will in 1672, back up here, 5,000 people were recorded as present, so many that the neighboring villages were described as deserted. Priests from nearby parishes might have to be enlisted to aid in performing the thousands of holy communions that would be offered to those in attendance. In many cases, the faithful were rewarded with a partial indulgence, a promise from the church to remit a portion of the penance required for person's sins in honor of the arriving relic. So they knew that we were saints, and he set up a priest to anoint every one of these people with the relic, because they knew it was a saint coming from Rome. You see that? Incredible. Let's drop down. The prepared relic would be carried on a litter covered by ornamental canopy along a parade route that usually commenced from a neighboring monastery or church where it had been housed in preparation for the translation The path would be lined with temporary triumphal arches and columns, effectively fusing city and church into one massive sacred space. A lengthy ceremony. The translation would take up most of the day. Look at that. So even in death, our bones are still prophesying. These dry bones are still prophesying. Look at this one. Dramatic presentations might also be included in the festivities. Stage plays honoring the relic were often held following the ceremony. The procession it might include floats that carried actors depicting scenes from the life of the martyrs. Wow. These reenactments were, of course, highly fictive, since typically nothing was known about the life of the person whose bones were being honored, because these were saints. They didn't know nothing about these people. They didn't know what they did, what their customs were, nothing. They just wanted to get a blessing from these bones so their life would be better. These are the Roman Christians that we read about, the Roman Catholic Christians. Not knowing that these early Christians were Israelites. But they were an important means of providing the public with the supposed story of their new saint. Now look at this. This is on the belly of the core of a body, right? Which is bones, right? But look at the jewels in it. You know, blue represents Zebulon, green represents Judah, that's topaz. I believe that's Levi, tabernacle. And then you have either one of these is Levi, the other one is Issachar, because Issachar is lapis that the priests will wear. They will wear these jewels, right? In their ephod. Let's look at some of these pictures. Wow. Look at the skulls. These are all being transported. Now, I did a video not too long ago on the skulls that were in Egypt, that were in Greece, and they were all Israelite bones, and they kept intertwining it with Negroes. These are Negro skulls, which are Jews. Incredible. I'm just going to go through here real quick. Look at this. Unbelievable. In death, our bodies are still prophesying. These are the Roman slaves. These are not the kings and queens and the Caesars of Rome. These are the bones that they took out of the catacombs and transported. Look at this. You wonder where the bones were. They took them all out, transported, and then highly decorated with our jewels. This is coming from America too. What did they say that the Native Americans were playing with? The Taínos, when they went over there, they found them playing with stones that were pearls and rubies. Look at this. And they worship these saints, these brothers and sisters. They worship their bones. Dry bones. Look at that. Look at how they decorated it. Wow. They even put fringes on it. Look at that. Look. But they still don't want you to know that these saints were Negroes, so they even put wigs on their head. And some of them they made blonde. Just so you wouldn't get it twisted that these bones were those of Israelite fashion, which were Negroes. Look. Incognito. Look at that. Wow. Look at that. Unbelievable. Look at that. Even down to the fingers. Look at how they dressed it with hair, blonde hair. They figure if you put blonde hair on it, it can't possibly be a Negro slave. Look at this. It reads, if intact, grave marker were absent and authentication based on circumstantial evidence, the skeleton might lack a name. So they give him one. An identity needed to be established, since an unidentified martyr would lack appeal to the faithful. Yeah, they don't want to know about their history, the martyr's history. They find out the real truth about them, they won't worship. It loses power to them. The process of identifying nameless bones were known in Italian as pezzati. In other words, baptism. They baptized them in what? Jewelry. Unknown relics will all be baptized. There it is again. Now, we know what the baptized meant when we came from Africa to America, how they baptized us in a giant pool and forced us to be baptized. So they're also doing our bones that way. And it says, and receive a new name. Often they were called after popular saints or other famous early Christians. But some of these bones, they don't even know who they are. They just found them in the catacombs and figured they were saints and gave them a new name. Look at that. This is how they trick you. The Pope bent down and picked up a handful of dirt and handed it to his visitor, assuring him the very soil of Rome itself was mixed with the blood of martyrs. Yeah, these people. And in affirmation, the dirt miraculously began to issue forth blood. Rome was built on a foundation of blood, but whose blood was it really? The relic hunters who descended into the catacombs after 1578, so you're talking about 1200 years later, were specifically seeking the graves of martyrs. In doing so, they were reenacting a scene that had been common 1200 years before, when the first Christian pilgrims, who were they? The Israelites, had prowled the passageways. What are the passageways? Those are the catacombs. They built the passageways. Not exclusively the domain of the Christians, the catacombs also provided the final resting place for numerous Jews. Wow, there it is right there. Numerous, just telling you, numerous Jews, Israelites. They went and stole all those bones from the Israelites. That's why they're saints. Look at all the people gathered, going to these highly decorated catacombs. Incredible. To prove my point that these were Negro Jews, I'm going to read this book called Blood Ritual by Philip de Vere. Blood Ritual by Philip de Vere. I'm going to go to page 78. I'm not telling you the dates of the publisher, but most of these books were in the 1950s on up. Okay, this is page 78. This is the Middle Ages, 476 to 1450. So 476, the Israelites were still maintaining who they were, and they were Negroes, as we have went over. As we look at this down here, we're going to read this. It says, we date the medieval era from the fall of the Roman Empire to the dawning of the Renaissance. Y'all know what the Renaissance was, the whitewashing of art and sculptures and who we were. Christianity was the unifying force, the unbroken center of life, culture, and society. This was the age of the Crusades, where thousands rushed to the Holy Land for reasons ranging from the purely spiritual to those who saw this as an excuse to murder, rape, pillage, loot, and burn, just like we read in John 10 and 10. Hatred of the Jews was as intense as their rancor towards the Islamic enemies. When the First Crusade invaded Palestine and eventually captured Jerusalem, one of their first acts was to gather the remaining Jews into the Great Synagogue. The building and the Jews inside it burned, while Crusader knights and monks marched around it singing, "Christ, we adore thee." Neither were the Jews safe back in Europe. As the Crusaders prepared to leave for the Near East, why they reasoned, don't we fight the enemies of Christ right here at home? So we just saw it in the heavenly bodies, all the bodies and the bones that were transported to further north. Let's look at this. Who are these Crusaders? Who are these people who came to kill, steal, and destroy? This is 740. This is on page 79. It reads here, by this time in history, Judaism has already absorbed the Khazars. Khazars were in the Caucasus Mountains, near the Black Sea. A Turkic tribe that converted to Judaism around 740 AD. Some contemporary histories argue that much of what became known as Eastern European Jewry, and we saw it, was quite heavily influenced by Khazarian culture, which included peculiar rites of human sacrifice. While our ritual murder cult operated in and around settlements of Jews all over the world, the heaviest concentration of cases was in Central and Eastern Europe, home of the Hasidim and the Khazars. While not the subject of our report, the Khazar influence of modern Judaism is undeniable. So most of these people calling themselves Jews are Khazars, Caucasians. The original Jews were black. They were African Americans, Negroes, so you can understand. How do we feel about these crosses that the Christians have? Because people, they believe that the cross is the way to life, but it's not the cross, it's Christ is the way to life. But let's see, our Purim we took very seriously. Look, this is in Blood Ritual, page 77. It reads, see note for 408. We'll go there in a minute. The Emistar Jews reportedly got drunk at Purim, which we just celebrated, and tied a Christian boy to a cross. Tied a Christian boy to a cross, because everybody was converting to Christianity, substituting him for the usual effigy of Haman. Who did they say flooded the European continent? Khazarians. He was tortured and later died. This is reported by Socrates, not the philosopher, an early Christian historian. So Socrates, this is reported by Socrates, not the philosopher, and early Christian historian. So there's two Socrates. This particular Socrates, the philosopher, was actually a black man. Let's go up here. 408. This is the reference. Roman Emperor Theodosius II issued an edict forbidding the Jews from burning an effigy of Haman that we read in, Esther. Same thing we read in Esther. That's who Haman is. That's the one they're talking about. Or mocking of Christian symbols, especially the cross, during the celebration of Purim. Okay, these crosses were used to hang us. That's what they were used for. They were gallows to a certain degree. Now, this is kind of a crazy book. This is called Strange Creations. Strange Creations. And it has several theories, right? And this is by Donna Kasi, page 109. And some of you know about the ISIS papers by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, very bright, smart, intellectual sister. But this author of this book, she used the insert of the ISIS papers. And it says here, Welsing uses the Cress theory as a reductionist tool for reading all artifacts of Western civilization as symbols of the whites' fear of genetic annihilation. The Washington Monument is a symbol for white male genitals that tower over the city of non-whites. The Christian cross symbolizes black male genitals. Castrated. She may have a point, like we just read in the book Blood Ritual. What did they do with the Christian who brought the cross? They beat him. I submit that the cross, as an important and probable symbol in the white supremacy system culture, is none other than a brain computer distillate of the white collective's fear-induced obsession with the genitals of all non-white men, of black men in particular, who had the potential to genetically annihilate the white race. So they did this with Nat Turner. They pickled his genitals and put them in a jar. They did this with also the Native American Indian called Geronimo. They did the same thing. Pickled his genitals and put them in a jar. Furthermore, the cross represents the black male genitals removed from the black male's body, meaning castrated genitals. Interesting. Thus, the cross is a critical symbol in the thought process of the white supremacy system, beginning its evolution almost 2,000 years ago, during early white aggression against blacks in Africa and Asia, which is also Jerusalem, Israel, okay, and Ethiopia. So we're going to read about this guy in Strange Creations. Michael Bradley, author, The Iceman Inheritance. Let's read one of his inserts here. Bradley's thesis is that the problem with the world is white men who are congenitally racist, sexist, and aggressive. Furthermore, their destructive tendency to rampant progress is the result of the unique evolution of the Caucasoid race in northern icebound climates, like the Khazars. Rampant progress, he writes, seems to be a racial inclination. Thus, Bradley, who dedicated to ending social injustice and racism, is in essential agreement with neo-Nazis. Oh boy. The aggression and wars of white people, says Bradley, are more intellectual and abnormal than those of non-whites. It is the spirit of abnormal violence that we Caucasoids excel among races. Now he's including himself in there. The Caucasoid, he's talking in first person, the Caucasoid domain was witnessed far more than its fair share of philosophical and religious conflict. Waves of competing belief sweeping from the Urals to the Atlantic, from the Sahara to the Baltic, clashing in dens of merciless racial fratricide, and leaving flotsam of broken bodies and swirling eddies of blood testifying to the violence of Caucasoid intellectual paroxysms. Intellectual violence is statistically rare among other races. Interesting. Intellectual violence is typical of Caucasoids. Our ways of religion, our inquisition, our philosophical conflicts have no parallel among yellow, brown, or black men. Interesting. Isn't that interesting? Says a lot. Let's drop down to where I highlighted. It says, Bradley seeks to blame white skin and Western culture for all the injustice and oppression in the world, and for evil itself. He sees progress as a Caucasoid disease that is spreading to the rest of the world. Who rules the world? Who's dominating the world? Let's find out who are masters of war. Let's make this real clear. This is called Imperial Rome, the name of this book. Imperial Rome by the Great Ages of Man. We're going to go to page 89, and it's called The Masters of War. So maybe he has a point here. The fourth beast. He who desires peace should prepare for war. The maxim by the military writer Figetus was a keystone of Roman foreign policy, and Rome's standing army remained unequal for centuries. In building their military machine, the Romans borrowed weapons and tactics wherever they could find them. From the Macedonians, the Carthaginians, the Spanish. But the real strength of the army lay in its men. Romans were bred to warfare. So there it is. The aristocracy produced such brilliant generals as Julius Caesar and Pompey. The common people contributed fear less infantry. Roman warriors fought, said Josephus, a Jewish historian who lived through a Roman siege, as if their weapons were permanently attached to them. Masters of War. Archaeologia Americana. This was published in 1836. Volume 2, Cambridge, printed for the Society at the university here. Now we're going to read this page on page 69, and I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar to the crimes that were committed against the Israelites throughout the Bible and throughout history. This is called Letter from Colonel Galindo to the Honorable Thomas L. Winthrop, President of the American Antiquarian Society, Boston, Massachusetts, Copen, June 19th, 1835. Listen carefully how they speak in this paragraph or in this chapter, who are conquering the nations. It reads here, Sir, desirous of accompanying the antiquities of the central continent. What's the central continent? This is America. And considering myself as somewhat experienced in such inquiries, I arrived here in April last and have dedicated particular attention to examine every vestige and fact connected with the history of and existing remains of the ruined city. Many may smile at our ideas of the word antiquity when informed that this place has only fallen to ruin since Spanish conquest in 1530. But the victors were so careless of everything except gain, and so dispersed and tyrannized over the wretched aborigines, these are the people who lived in America, that even the memory of this place was awful obliterated, because it was a war. Though its extent and form of civilization are evidenced by the colossal amounts of stones, both in their natural state and squared, obelisks, some standing and some fallen, tables and large blocks of carved stone, busts, the various fragments of sculpture, and earthenware. Now listen carefully. Now that the rulers of these regions have a direct, affectionate interest in their fame and history, now they're interested, see that? We dedicate ourselves to its study. They had to kill everybody off first. And this is what they do with our heroes. They kill them all off. Then they want to study them. Then they want to give them glory. An endeavor, and then they want to change the color of them. An endeavor to rescue from the destroying course of time whatever facts or mountains remain. The government of Central America intends publishing in Castilian a long report I have drawn up with relation to the ruins and history of this place, with various plans, views, and copies of figures and inscriptions. I therefore at present confine myself to a few remarks. After they didn't kill us all off, now they want to do the research on the place and talk about how brilliant we were after we got killed off. The Indian human race of America, I must assert to be the most ancient on the globe. However, the white race, led by a foolish vanity. They wanted the pearls, the diamonds, they wanted the customs, they wanted the artillery. They were led by a foolish vanity. They assumed to be the progenitor of the human family. So they want to say that the so-called white race are the progenitors of the human families, which is totally false. It is probable that at a very recent epoch it has issued from the regions of the Caucasus, inundating Europe. So the Caucasians or the Khazars inundated Europe with seeds, extending itself over America, and with the energy of its youth and talent now invading Asia and Africa. So they had to conquer America, and they had to conquer Asia and Africa next. The Indian race, on the contrary, has arrived at a decrepit old age. It has passed through the stages of youth, manhood, and even decay. The new governments of late Spanish America incorporate the Indians into their political associations and endeavor to make them participate in the benefits of civilization. What are the benefits? Bow down to their flag, bow down to their religions. But this policy, however honorable to its authors, is fruitless. Even they know it's fruitless. Even they know that it's not worth it or beneficial. The Indian race is in the last centuries of its existence and must soon disappear from the earth. So just like Yahushua said, they have come to steal, kill, and to destroy everything that we know. And that's what you see in the earth today.